Hello students, welcome to another lecture of solid state. In the last class we were discussing about types of crystalline solids, right? In the crystalline solids, though they are looking like a crystal, but inside the crystal who are associated together will decide which type of solid it is, right? So we have seen different types of solids in which if molecules are associated, so many molecules are compactly arranged, that means that solid is called as molecular solid. If ions are compactly arranged, they are called as ionic solid. If covalent bonded atoms are arranged, they are called as covalent solids, and if metal atoms are arranged together, they are called as metallic solids, right? So now we have seen how many types of solids are possible. Now let us look at what can be done to measure the distance between each layer of the solid or lattice structure of the solid, how can it be determined, right? From X-ray diffraction studies, we can determine the structure of solid, right? Therefore, based on X-ray diffraction studies, Bragg has derived an equation by considering the layers, by considering that solid has many layers uniformly arranged one after the other, right? When that solid having uniform arrangement is incident with X-rays, what happens to the X-rays, how they will reflect back, and all that phenomena together will determine how much distance is present in between each layer of the solid, right? That equation given by Bragg is called as Bragg's equation, which will help us to determine the distance between each layer of the solid, right? But the condition here is you should take such a solid in which each layer has got an equal distance of separation between them. You should not have a solid in which first layer and second layer are very much close to each other, but second and third layer are far apart from each other, then closer to each other. That type of random arrangement inside the solid should not be there. A uniformly arranged solid should be taken for which Bragg's equation can be useful, right? So now let us take a solid having many layers one after the other, right? Just like any solid, even this solid of general diagram I have taken also has many layers arranged one below the other, right? To that solid, if you incident X-ray, when X-ray strikes on the solid, it strikes exactly at point A. The first X-ray, this is first X-ray and this is second beam of X-ray. When you strike X-ray, there will be beam of rays. This is the first beam of X-ray which strikes at the point A, right? Which strikes at the point A, and after hitting the surface of the solid, it reflects back. It reflects back, right? Then comes the next X-ray which also enters and strikes the second layer, right? First beam of X-ray goes to first layer and the second beam of X-ray goes and strikes to the second layer. But if you compare the distance travelled by first ray and second ray has to travel the distance of extra distance which is this much, right? First ray travel till here only, but second ray has to travel a little extra distance of how much? If this is for A, this is for B, this much extra distance first ray has to travel, right? The path difference which is extra for second ray is this much. Till here it's same, till here it's same, right? So now, and after traveling this extra distance, it strikes the second layer, and just like first layer, this also reflects the X-ray back, right? This also gets reflected back, right? Same as first ray, even the second ray also gets reflected back. When these two rays are hitting the solid surface, how much extra distance will the second ray travel is equal to how much extra distance will the second ray travel to hit the surface is equal to how much extra distance the same second ray travels in reflecting back. To come and strike this much extra distance, if it travel means to go back also it travels the same amount of extra distance to reflect back, right? So this distance and this distance is same, right? So therefore you let us take these points as A, B and C, right? So now what we have to determine from this equation is, if this is how the rays are incidenting and this is how the rays are reflecting back, what is the distance of separation between those two layers? That can be determined by taking D is equal to how much? AB sin theta. If you take the angle of separation, this is theta and this is also theta, right? So AB sin theta, how much AB sin theta is, that much is the distance of separation, right? If you apply that trigonometric equation, you will get the value of D, right? So now this is for AB to reflect, to hit, to incident this much extra distance it is traveling, to reflect back what is the extra distance, this much is extra distance, and the same equation if you apply for the other side, D is equal to AC sin theta, right? This is for incident angle, this is for reflecting angle, right? And we know that AB is equal to AC. So right, you can use any equation because both are same. So now let us apply D is equal to AB plus BC, sorry, AB plus BC sin theta. D is equal to 2AB sin theta can you take, because both of them are equal. What is the distance AB? That is the distance BC. Angle of incidence to incident on the layer, the same distance it is traveling, and to reflect back also the same distance it is traveling. So either you can take 2AB or you can take 2BC because both are same, right? So now this is the equation, D is equals to 2AB sin theta, right? Now how can you take the D value? Here is I told you that there is a condition to apply Bragg's equation, and that condition is whatever layers are present in the solid, they should have equal separation, right? If they have equal separation and if the wavelength through which X-ray is falling on the surface will be applying the same, if the layer of separation is the same, then only whatever X-ray you are incidenting, if the layer of separation between each layer is the same, then whatever X-ray you are incidenting will have wavelength same, but in the form of integral multiple of first layer and second layer and third layer. If they are not having same separation, for first ray the path difference will be maybe smaller, and the second ray, as the distance is large, path difference will be large, and therefore if the path difference is getting changed, wavelength of the X-ray will also change, right? But therefore that condition is integral multiple of D is equal to distance of separation should be integral multiple of the wavelength which you are incidenting, right? If the distance of separation is the same, then only whatever wavelength you are giving will have integral multiple. First and second the same distance, second and third the same distance. Therefore for first and second how much wavelength you are getting, for second and third also you will get the same wavelength. So that condition is there. Applying both, D is equal to n lambda, right? So n lambda is equal to 2D sin theta, right? So this is the final Bragg's equation in which you can determine d is equals to n lambda by 2 sin theta, right? Using this formula, if you know n value, if you know the wavelength which you are incidenting, and if you know the angle of separation, you can easily determine the distance between each layer, which will give you the structure of solid. So please copy down the Bragg's equation so that we will move forward. So now the next, after knowing Bragg's equation, the next question which comes to our mind is, in the solid, right, there will be an arrangement of atoms which are uniform throughout, right? So instead of studying or measuring the total length of the solid, breadth of the solid and all that, if you can measure one small particle or one small area, suppose this is a big crystal of solid in which uniform cubes are present side by side, right? So instead of measuring the length of the total crystal, breadth of the total crystal, it's not possible, because for every piece of crystal length changes, breadth changes, like that. Therefore, if you can measure the dimensions of this small cube, the same cubes will be present in some other crystal also. So by measuring the dimensions of this small cube, you can tell that this solid belongs to this type of unit cell or this category of crystal, right? And that crystal, this is the crystal lattice having uniform arrangement, and this small cube, which is the fundamental part of every crystal lattice, which gets repeated in the crystal lattice. Crystal lattice means the total crystal or the space, right? And the unit cell is the fundamental part of any crystal lattice which gets repeated throughout the crystal. The same dimensions of the cube should be repeated throughout. One cube is having lesser dimensions and the other cube is having greater dimensions. That part cannot be called as unit cell. Unit cell means a small particle or a small area which is having its own dimensions, and the same dimension gets repeated throughout the crystal lattice. That is called as unit cell. Many unit cells come together to give a crystal lattice, and measurements of one unit cell and second unit cell and third unit cells are exactly the same. So if you are able to determine the measurements of one unit cell in the total lattice, that is enough. You don't have to measure what is the dimensions of one big crystal, because crystal can be of this size, crystal can be of even larger size. So what we can easily do is take measurements of small cell or small area. What is that small area? You call it as unit cell. Let me repeat the definition of unit cell. The fundamental part of the crystal lattice which gets repeated in the total crystal, and its dimensions are same throughout the crystal. That part or that area is called as unit cell of the crystal lattice, right? And this unit cell is different in different type of crystals. What are the different unit cells? Unit cells have different type of arrangements. Let us take a general diagram of a unit cell and then classify how can it be different. And how can you measure the dimensions of the unit cell? Right? Suppose this is a small box and it's not the diagram of the total crystal, it is just the diagram of one unit cell. Like that, millions of unit cells will be present in one crystal, right? We are not going to study how many millions or how many unit cells. We will study the dimensions of only one unit cell, and based on that only we will decide which type of crystal it is, right? So now let us look at a diagram of one unit cell. It has edges, right? Three types of edges will be there, and that is measured as A, B and C. And the angles of separation between A, B and C is alpha, beta and gamma, right? So now what we should do now is different unit cells has a different value of A, B and C and a different value of alpha, beta and gamma, right? But every unit cell should have these 6 measurements fixed. Based on these 6 measurements, you can decide which type of unit cell is it. Is it a cubic cell, or is it an orthogonal cell, or is it a triclinic or monoclinic? Which type of cell? How can you decide? By looking at these 3 measurements, right? So for that we have to know how many types of unit cells can be possible broadly. Primitive cell is one type of unit cell and centered cell is another type of cell. When you say primitive cell, it means that suppose I have taken a cubic this is a small portion of unit cell. In every unit cell, where is the atom or the ion or the molecule present? Is at the corner. How many such corners? 8 such corners are present in the cube, right? 8 such corners are present in the cube, right? This is the basic unit cell. This basic unit cell in which the atoms or the ions or the molecules present at each corner of the cube is called as primitive cell. Atoms are present at each corner of the cube, right? That basic unit cell in which minimum how many atoms are coming? 8 is called as primitive. Primitive means old, right? That means foundation. Whatever unit cell you take, I have shown many type of unit cells, right? I told orthogonal, triclinic, monoclinic, all that. They are called as different types of unit cells. Why they are called as different type of unit cell is because everyone has this primitive cell same. Everyone has this primitive cell same. Along with this primitive cell, they will have different type of centered structure. These 8 corners are fixed in each unit cell and it is called as primitive cell. What is extra is this. What is extra or what are the extra atoms are this. Centered means apart from these 8, some centers will be present, whether at the top center or bottom center or left center or right center or exactly center. But that extra arrangements are called as centered cell. Centered also is of body centered and face centered, right? Body centered means if suppose this is a cell in which 8 corners are pakka or fixed, right? Now which point is called as the center of the body? This, right? Exactly in the center. It should come exactly in the center from backwards. It should come exactly in the center from front, from right, from left. That center is called as body center, right? Apart from this 8, one more atom or ion is present in the center of the body. That cells are called as body centered unit cells. That cells are called as body centered unit cells. Right? Here I have taken an example of cubic shape, but it's not necessary that all the unit cells should be of cubic shape only. You can have triclinic shape, monoclinic shape, orthogonal shape, etc. But whatever the shape is, 8 corners are mandatory. Apart from that, what else you can have? What is the possibility is, the possibility can be nothing, only this 8, or one body center in the center of the body, or face centered, let us see, or sometimes primitive as well as body center as well as face center, right? All these possibilities are there. What we are simply seeing the possibilities. Exactly how we will see in the next diagram, but these are just the possibility. Whenever you see the name body centered, you should understand that body centered means apart from these corners, one more atom or one more ion is present in the center of the body at this point. You can draw even here also, from top also center, from bottom also center, from left also center, from right also center, right? If this is the cube, not even here, somewhere center of this, 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 it is in between this duster, that is called as body centered, right? Body centered means these many, 8 plus 1. Next what? Face centered. Face centered means, what is a face? Is this top layer is one face, this side layer is another face, this front layer is another face, back layer is another face, right is another face, bottom is another face. Total how many faces you are getting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? A cube if you take, or whether you take orthogonal or monoclinic or whatever shape you take, this is a rectangle, right? Whatever you take, it will have how many faces? 6 faces it has. And out of that 6 faces, these 2 faces are exactly opposite, these 2 faces are exactly opposite, and these 2 faces are exactly opposite, right? So, whenever you see the word face centered cell means, apart from these 8 corners, how many corners I showed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Apart from these 8 corners, you will have 2 faces, whether top bottom or these 2 or these 2. Any 2 opposite faces will have one atom accordingly, right? Apart from these 8 are pakka. Face centered means, for body centered 8 plus 1, for face centered 8 is mandatory. If you let me take 2 opposite faces of top and bottom, right? One ion at the top and one ion at the bottom. I have to select any 2 faces only which are opposite to each other. I cannot take this face and this face because they are not opposite. I cannot take this face and this face because they are also not opposite. I should select any 2 faces which are opposite to each other, and that 2 opposite faces has one atom in the top, one atom in the bottom, or one ion in the top, one ion in the bottom, right? Apart from the 8 which is pakka or mandatory, right? So, a total of 8 plus 2 atoms or ions are present in a face centered cell, right? These are the different possibilities. These are the different possibilities in which a unit cell can exist. Now, what we will see is how many shapes can be possible for a unit cell, and in that shapes how many arrangements are possible in each shape. How many shapes are possible? For a unit cell, how many shapes are possible? There are 7 shapes in the unit cell. What I have shown on the diagram is only cubic shape, and that is different from the rectangle shape which I have taken here, and there are others also. So total how many shapes are possible for a unit cell? 7 shapes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in each shape only primitive is there, or face centered is also there, or body centered is also there, or how many possibilities are there in each shape. Like that we will see the diagrammatic representation of each shape of the unit cell and how the arrangement is there inside each shape. Okay, please copy this flow chart. Let us look at the next topic.